Hi, this is uh, still trying. Tim, uh, I saw your response on there and I see you're fairly new rigging and whatnot. I'd rather do a video than spill all that stuff over over Blender Artist because it is not worth it. Basically, I pulled your file up here. I've got it up here on the screen. Um, you've got uh, several issues, and some of them you can fix, and some of them you might go, I don't want to mess with it. I see you're fairly new, so you get a character, you want to do something with that character, and you throw Rigify in there without understanding it. And um, let me just capsulize what Rigify is, an advanced rig. When you do your meta rig there, there's a C program, and pieces of it I've changed, not all of it, some of it for my own purpose. Um, it takes those bones and says, okay, this bone goes from arm to elbow. I really need two bones, so it makes two bones. And it does that by copying the metarig bone, and they call it an org bone. When you see org, that's the original bone. Then from that original bone, the program then like will split bones, and then it'll make what's called a deformed bone. That's the bone that moves the mesh. That's the only bone that moves the mesh. All the rest of the bones are mechanism bones, which means if this bone goes up, that bone goes down. And, I put a constraint on it and does it. Or it's a control bone. It's one that says, oh, it's a control. That means this one is the one that I use to move it. So in a nutshell, that's Rigify. If you change the meta rig, you have to change it in Rigify. You can't just add a bone. It'll bomb. Because that program says, here's what I have in Rigify meta rig. You add a bone. That's not Rigify bone. If you go into edit mode and you scroll down, you'll see where you can add like a chain and so on. I have dogs that are going to bark here, no doubt. They always do when I'm trying to do video. Um, your question, we had several questions. Why'd my rig messed up? Well, that's because your mesh was not scaled correctly, and we'll fix that. I'll show you how to fix that real fast. And the second question was, where do I parent that bone? That bone goes to a deaf head bone. You want it parented to the deformed bone that's going to move the head. You could theoretically uh, parent it to the control bone and do the same thing. So either one will work. I usually put it on the deaf bone because it's going to be a deaf bone moving a deaf bone rather than your eye controls is now parented to something else. So anyway, I got your file here, and uh, it has got some issues on it. We'll try to take care of those um, as we go along here. So I'm going to pop your file up here, and I just flipped this up to the top. I don't like it down at the bottom, and kind of move this out a little bit so I can see what's going on. I'm old, as you can tell. Been doing this a long time. um, you don't need this rig. This rig is no good, so we'll just regenerate it. So I'm just going to select your rig here, and we're going to get rid of it. We don't need it. I'm just going to delete it. Boom, away it goes. And your widgets don't matter. Your meta rig, let's bring that back, and let's bring your. We'll do this in a couple of pieces. First, we'll look at your body, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, we got rid of the rig, so we want to clear the parent. Alt P, clear parent. Okay, and go down to your See that? You modify your armature. You really want armature on top, but that's okay. We'll put it there in a minute. All right. So now look at your mesh. Look at your transforms. These are your transforms right here. Look at that scale. When you have a bone, like a stretch tube bone, it goes in and gets what's called the bone matrix. That bone matrix is set when you parent that bone in there. And if your mesh says it's 0.678Z and it says, oh, straighten my bone to 1, guess what happens to your mesh? It straightens it to 1. Now your mesh is messed up. And same with that's a stretch too. There's a couple other modifiers that are used in rigging that will do that. So what you want to do is you want these to be these transforms to be applied. Okay, so include your parent, Control A, and that's, I'm going to just say all. Okay, now that should put the origin at the center. Okay, it does. Now I noticed one thing on your mesh, and I'm not going to fix it. You can spend, if you, when you do your models and stuff, a couple of things. One is you're not centered. See where that blue line is? That's your center of the world. And you want your models when you rig to be centered. And if I tab this thing over to wireframe and select the center of your model, you can see you're off. So that means when you mirror something, it's going to be off slightly, like your eyes poking out the side of your mesh. Well, that's because your mesh is off. I'm not going to fix your mesh, but you could move your vertices over to the middle or move your model over to the middle, you know, something like that. The other thing is going to cause you some issues here, and again, it's not what I'm going to fix. It's not a major issue as far as rigging, but it will be as far as deformation. And if we again take a look in your model, and well, that's probably not the best way to look at it. You really I just turned wireframe on and object mode here to look at your topology. You have these polygons that are not square. You see, these are going to mess with your two things. It'll mess with your deformations because they won't quite bend right. You really want to be squares on your model, but I'm not going to fix that. That's for you to look up. We're concerned here about your meta rig. Okay, so anyway, you generate your rig. You know, this is not going to deform real nice for you, is what I'm saying. It's going to be okay, but it's going to be great. But that's okay. It never is on the first few you do. You're going to generate your rig here. Okay, so now I got my rig. Okay, if I didn't like where the bones are positioned, I just delete that rig, delete the modifier, go back into the meta rig into edit mode, and then move the bones where I want. Okay, so we're just going to hide that again like you had hidden, and that's fine. We can do that. Okay, way to go. We got a rig now, and we're going to change the display a little bit, just because the way the rigs are, you're looking at control items. See these bones? I'm in the armature. These are your armature layers. These are corresponding to these, so you just got a little slick thing here. But anyway, these are all your control bones. They move your mesh. So let's say I'm going to just parent this armature to this mesh. I select the mesh, select the armature, Control P. Automatic weights, sometimes it works. As you get it more into Blender, you'll probably won't use this too much. You'll do it to just get an initial thing, and then you'll weight paint it to how you really want it to move. So now we're back to your rig that you had. Like it should. We move it back and forth. Woo-hoo. Okay. You now need to go weight paint. You can look that up. I'm not going to do that for you. But anyway, these are the 3 layers. These are your original bones. Look at your board inslate. Okay, that's your meta rig. Basically, it just copies it. Okay. The second one here, these are your IK stretch bones, and these mess you up all the time if you're don't have your transforms taken care of. We don't have a lot of interest in those, other than if you want to change how the IK works and where it's connected, which you'll do. But this third one here, these are your deformed bones. And when you do a bone, you could look down there, and you probably have seen where it says, yeah, that's a deformed bone. You go look at your bone thing, and you come down, you look, and you go, yeah, that one's checked. That's what glues to your mesh. That is where you want to hook in your eye bone. So we got this one here. Okay, it looks okie dokie. Okay. When you did your meta rig, your bones were not straight, so when it copies and gets over to your deformed bones, they're not going to be straight either. See that coming down? So on your meta rig, you want to make sure, like if it's the center of your model, that those transforms are 0 on those individual bones when they come in. These are not because they're all hooked together. And that one's straight, but then these were not. But it went ahead and put it there. It said, okay, that's where you want it. That's where it goes. And that's what's happening. These bones will copy some control bones and stuff like that. That's kind of the way it works. Okay, got that. Okay. Lectured over. Now, what about my eye? Well, you're going to parent your eye bones to this deformed bone here. That's the safest way, and that's DefSpine.006. So let's pull up one of your eye bones here. If we can find it. Is it cornea? Did you do cornea? Huh? Okay. Take a look again at your transforms. And I'm going to select that. I'm just going to go in a local mode, which is /, which says whatever selected, that. Take a look at it, and then just want to see what this mesh looks like. Okay, you got a mirror on it, and you got a subsurf of 2. Okay, that's cornea. How come you don't have the eyeball? Okay, when you parent 2 pieces to a bone, the key is to make sure your origins are in the same place. That way they'll rotate the same. And that's not a big deal. I'm going to turn your mirror off because I just want to work with your original, which is this one. Okay, so what we want to do is make sure, get into edit mode, and we're going to select the middle. This looks like this, the middle right here. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to put the cursor there. Cursor to selected. Alright, now my cursor's there. Back into edit mode, out of local, so I can see what else we got. Let's hide our man now. We don't need him for this part. And he got an eyeball down here too. Alright. Make sure our origin is in the same place, and it is, you know, set origin to the cursor. It's okay. But if you look, you've got rotation and scale there. You've got to apply your transformations. You'll get weird, odd things happening. So let's Control A, and at least rotation and scale. Okay, location doesn't matter so much. Okay, that's where your origin is. Usually you want it 0, which is down here. But for eyeballs, you really want it there because that's where you move your eye. You don't move your eye from the middle of your feet. So we're going to go back into edit mode on the rig. We're on the rig now. Okay. Shift A and put a bone up there. Okay, and we're going to take a look at this bone. We want to make sure this is a deformed bone. It is a deformed bone. Okay, that's good. We're going to take the tail, and I'm just going to put it right where the cursor is. Cursor selection to cursor. Okay, go 3. Grab it on Y and move that dude out. Yeah, you can stick it out like that. That's okay. Okay. Now this bone here, you want parent it to def. Control P. I'm just going to do one eye, but you could do the other. Keep the offset. Okay, so that's the basis of your bone. Now the next thing you need to do is get this mesh tied to that bone. So the way you do that, back into object mode, select my mesh, then select that bone by putting this in pose mode, or pose mode is one way to do it. Select the mesh, select the bone, pose mode, and then select that bone. Control P to bone. Okay. Now you can move your rig around. Let's put some control bones back. Remember we did all these. Let's see. What do we want? Torso, which is partly the head. We can tell from that. Okay. Now what we want is to make sure that that eye follows that head. Okay, and it's going to follow it. You know. Rotate on local Z. Yeah. See, it's going to move around. Okay. Now you build your other dog. Hey! Quiet it down, baby. Good girl. That's all there is to it. Now, your control bones, you can parent those to root, or you can parent that also to the head. But the other bones, you build a little thing here. Now, if you want your control bone to follow your head, then obviously that's where you would parent it. And then you just, put the other bones back. You only had, 3, 4, 5, and put a constraint on them. You're done. Okay, now, one other thing is to get your cornea in the right place. So let's take a look at what you got on that. Subsurf. Okay. You got individual ones. We're going to mirror these things across and then move them. That's what you're going to do. Alright, this Again, you want to make sure your cursor to select it. All I'm doing on your eyeball is just making sure that the origin is actually where I think it is. So I want to set that origin to that cursor. Okay, it is now. Now I click on the eyeball. Look at that, man, that thing's messed up. So rotation and scale, you want to make sure, I didn't do location on that because I'll move the origin back. I want that origin to be right there because I want to marry it with this one up here. Let's select this one and cursor to selected. Okay, and now we know where the cursor is. We're going to take this ball and selection the cursor. Alright, I just moved it up. Now let's take a look at this mesh. Oh, I just see some problems right there. You're poking through. This is the eyeball, so you could shrink this just a little bit. So let's scale it down just a hair. And that'll take care of that. But now your scale, you need to apply Control A, rotation and scale. Okay, now we want that to be the same as the other one, so we just select that bone. Control P to bone. Alright, you're set to go. That's how you do that. Now that one there, that will rotate the same. They'll both move the same. Okay. Hope that answers your question. It helps you out a little bit. I would suggest that on Rigify to help you out, look up Dan Pro. Rigify. He's got, it's about a, I don't know, 40-hour tutorial series. It's long. Go through that, you'll understand it. Now, it's on a different version of Blender, but the only difference is where you click, because they haven't updated this yet, or at least I haven't got notice of it. And we are working on some of this stuff, but not all of it. And that hopefully will help you out. And I'm going to send this to you.